of the IAMA Euro Series here in Marienburg. And again, ladies and gentlemen, sit tight, get your drinks at the ready. Here's the grid. It is Ian Eyckmans from Giltaire, Carenini from McLaughlin, as well from Pharamond and Sam Shaw on row 3. Edoardo Villa and Andy Rattel, they will go from row 4 with Alessandro Tedesca and Luca Griggs on row 5, rounding out the top 10. Henkie Kalteren and Sam Balota, they round out the top 6 from Adam Rahali and Khali Atkins on row 7. Julian Kamen and Hugo Besson round out the top 8 rows. Jules Caranta and Anna Malaysia round out row 9 from Raymond Blanc, and Gus Lawrence from the UK rounding out the top 20 on row 10. Fred Green and Kevin Latinga round out row 11 from Louis Johnson Cullen. Elie Goldstein, last year's champion, the 201, who starts this all the way back in 24th place. Ricardo Sorelli and Mika Voss, they go from row 13 from Timo Gelade. And Ruben Moya, again, last year's third in the championship in the Senior X30 category, starts all the way back in 28th. It's been a tough weekend for the quick drivers from last year, but this year, let's see what happens. Clement Outron and Andrea Pirovano, they go from row 15, rounding out the top 30 from Perad Rafael and Louis Juan rounding out row 16. Malo Bollier and Francois Delity round out row 17 from Aaron Faranzano, and Lewis Bird rounding out the 36 kart grid on row 18. Graham, you're back in the commentary box. I have to say, your hair looking very windswept and moist out there.
Yeah, I was about to be drowned at some point on the grid, because as we were just introducing you guys to the contenders of the senior class, the rain kept on becoming stronger and stronger by the second. And now these are certainly the worst conditions we've been facing so far. Yesterday was quite a good spectacle in terms of rain, but look at the spreads being really washed out onto the track by the 36 drivers of the senior category. A bit of wind, a lot of rain. It is slippery all over the place, especially in turn number 1. Watch out for any sudden moves on different racing lines. There's pretty much all choices open right now when it comes to finding a bit of a grip, although it's easier said than done. But as a result, as you said, some of the big names, including Ruben Moya, starting from further back on the grid. Usual contenders that we see at the forefront, Ian Eyckmans, Evan Giltaire, cannot wait for the battle on the way to turn number 1. Those two have been battling along already for a good number of years in the European Championship, but now they find themselves for the first time on the same grid in the IAMA Euro Series, and this will give us one heck of a show, that's for sure. A GP against PB Kart. As you can see, we have David Manchester and Joanna as well, the officials and judge of fact. This is happening behind the scene, and they're going to have both of their eyes really looking very, very focusedly on all the screens. Are we going to go? Yes, let's go out. Green, green, green. We're racing in Marienburg, and Evan Giltaire going around the outside the long way, trying to keep up with second place, crossing the line on Ian Eyckmans on the way to turn number 2. Everything going quite well on the way to the second turn. And it's raining really heavily here in Marienburg. Watch out for the line as Evan Giltaire just took the lead in one swing of the arm, beautifully made by the French driver up in the lead. Ian Eyckmans second. Some of the drivers trying to find the best line outside of turn number 3. Not quite easy to do so. Dancing in the rain as we have the 240 from VDK. This is Phil McCoughlin, who had a great start from the outside of the second row of the grid up into P3. Danny Shaw just behind. Sam Shaw, shall I say, in the P5. Oh, the 320.
Louis Johnson Cool.
Yes, indeed. Unfortunately, we're going to lose him. He was going to try to get back onto the circuit by the look of it, but the marshal decided otherwise. This was maybe too dangerous with the yellow flag being waved outside of turn number 4. And look at those conditions. You can actually see some drop of rains on the length of our cameras around the track. But as for now, Giltaire did certainly the hardest part, getting out of the mayhem of the opening lap, and is leading the way with Goldstein trying as well to find his way through.
Oh, heavy damage there as well to one of the VDKs. That's the 257 with heavy damage, and that is,
That's Clément Outron, unfortunately. That's the junior champion of Belgium, and he won't go any further into this final mechanical flag, but I'm sure that he got that certainly very clear, and he's going to make his way back to the pit lane.
Yeah, that is very unfortunate. So lap 1 completed, then Evan Giltaire leads the way, leads by 0.3 of a second. I said he was good at those starts, and he's he's put my words in my mouth there as he's then dominated the start of this one, leading the way. Ian Eyckmans still there in second place from McLaughlin, Shaw, Kalteren and Carenini there in the top 6 as he tries to dive down the inside there of Henkie Kalteren. failing to do so, stays there in position. There's Khali Atkins on your screen. He's got the close company of the 207 of Edoardo Villa just behind. Edoardo Villa started this race in 7th place. Currently, now has just dropped back into P8, so still struggling out there with the conditions. As very slow out of the corner there. Who was that? The 240? Was that Phil McLaughlin? It was, yeah. Henkie Kalteren down the inside through the corner. Phil McLaughlin retaliates from that one. Side by side. Kalteren not able to maintain it. Slots back into P5. McLaughlin holding on to that one, but then again down and towards turn number 1 now again. Henkie Kalteren side by side. Contact between the two of them. They nearly wipe each other out as McLaughlin maintains that position once again with just sweeping back the crossover. Trying to come back through, and again just holds it round the outside there. Keep an eye though, because he's going to come back down the inside, and Khali Atkins is going to go 2 for 1. Latches onto that inside curb. The kart was on rails as he went through turn number 3 and dominated those two there, and now moves up into P4. McLaughlin struggling to find traction now as he now gets past Henkie Kalteren. Now Carenini's coming back into the fray here as well as he tries to look down the inside. No, can't quite do it. It's all over that inside curb goes Henkie Kalteren and gets back past Phil McLaughlin, who is there once again in that position of P5 as they go through under pressure now because everyone has latched on to this battle. The 207's here, Edoardo Villa, Kevin Latinga's here, Luca Griggs has joined the fray as well. Oh my goodness, this is one long train of karts all on lap 3 as they go in towards turn 12.
And we are only getting started for the show of the senior final. Diving through from very far back is Edoardo Villa, but is able to hold on to his line, but dropping a momentum to Phil McLaughlin as a result. Whoa, that was a very, very ballsy move, shall I say, as Danny Carenini has just picked up a front fairing misplacement. I'm afraid if you keep a look at the nose cone and front fairing of the Energy Corse driver, and I'm afraid that his misplate is bouncing through the rain of Mariembourg. So that's quite another turn of event for Danny Carenini as he's tumbled down the order in P9. The 296 on your picture. This is Kevin Lantinga, maybe who picked up that front fairing misplacement, I'm afraid.
That's Rema Blanc.
Let's try to see that as the 249 is out indeed going cross-country. Rema Blanc, we're back here with Evan Giltaire being chased by Eyckmans and Harry Bartel. Still battling as well for P3, making his way through past Sam Shaw as well, down in P4, Sam Shaw, but what a move that was from Khali Atkins earlier, the lap before. That's the sort of thing that we love to see. Here's the replay of what happened at lap number, that's turn number 2 at least.
Yeah, that's Rema Blanc going off the circuit there, I think, just to lock up and going round. Real shake-up here because at the moment, Khali Atkins is really making that Croc Promotions kart work well as wow. That was a huge lunge down the inside there for that driver there. I think, who was that went down the inside? This is a look at the start then. Great start then from Eyckmans, but round the outside, keep an eye on Evan Giltaire, who sweeps back through the inside, making that outside line work well as well as the inside line as he got working earlier on in the weekend. Down the inside went Phil McLaughlin to try and go for second place, was unable to make that move work as the rest of the field came through turn number 2, and looks like everyone came through that corner cleanly. The rain is just absolutely chucking it down right now. Track conditions are getting worse and worse as the race progresses. Again, 2 different racing lines there. You saw McLaughlin take the inside tighter line. You saw Latinga take the wider outside line. More action coming through thick and fast, though.
And I think that's Kevin Lantinga who has his front fairing. You can see the front fairing moving in the rain. So is one of the teammates of Danny Carenini, currently up in P7, trying to give a hard time to Phil McLaughlin, the British driver from VDK. But I'm afraid that for Kevin Lantinga, there will be a 5-second penalty by the end of the race. He's still very much in this, as Elie Goldstein further back as well has just got past his teammate from TB Kart, Edoardo Villa, for P8 by the look of it. We're going to have to watch that back. In the meantime, half of a second between your 2 leaders, Giltaire and Eyckmans, and Atkins trying to catch up as well. He's not for the back, Khali Atkins, and he's taking, or at least trying to take Sam Shaw with him, as we're here with Elie Goldstein confirmation of the move by the Belgian driver on Edoardo Villa down in P9, Luca Griggs in P10. Then we have Sam Balota, Danny Carenini that we lost out of sight for the Energy Corse driver, as he was one of the names so far this weekend. Watch out, oh, this is Eyckmans who just lost P2. Here's another big turn of event. We talked about Khali Atkins being quite close to the Belgian, and he just made his move just before the braking zone of the hairpin. This is quite a smart maneuver from Khali Atkins because it actually prevented Eyckmans to counter-attack on the next corner. And now Eyckmans is losing a bit of momentum by the look of it, so that was going to go the way of Khali Atkins.
Well, I've got to say, Khali Atkins was not on my radar as a driver to potentially win this final. He started this race in P14. He had good heats yesterday. He did gain some good positions all the way throughout the weekend, but was never really at the sharp end. And right now, he's battling for P1 here. He's right behind Evan Giltaire. The gap is 1/10 of a second for the race lead, and I reckon Khali Atkins could potentially go for a move on this lap if he's got the momentum, because he's absolutely flying out there at the moment, is the 2:24 in second place. And yes, in fact, he has done it. He has done it, yeah. It has changed. Khali Atkins to the race lead. He's done it, and look at him. He's absolutely excited. It's off your camera at the moment. I'm looking at the commentary box window for the time being, but Atkins, there it is on your screen. Look at the lead he's got. He's only done 3 corners. That Croc Promotion car in these wet conditions is absolutely lit. It is just gripping all the way around this track. Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. They have nailed the setup of that car in these conditions.
That's an impressive recovery indeed for Khali Atkins, your new leader, one of the new names up in the front, having climbed 13 places on his way to P1 as it is. He's about to conclude lap number 7 out of 17, on the way to turn to lap number 8, and Evan Giltaire is the one now who, and one of the VDKs, this is Clément Autran, and look at the size of his front fairing and the position of the nose cone as well. He really got pushed quite heavily there, Clément Autran, I'm afraid, and there was no way he could be allowed to carry on in this final. But Khali Atkins is really cruising away in those waters. 1.3 seconds from Evan Giltaire, who after such a dominant start to his final seems to be struggling quite a bit now. Eyckmans trying to keep up with the Frenchman. Sam Shaw, Henkie Kalteren, the second wagon outside of turn number 4. Turn number 3, that is, on the way to turn number 4. Sam Shaw seemed to have really let Henkie Kalteren behind. There's a bit of a gap between those two, 0.6 of a second with a couple of meters. As Evan Giltaire doesn't seem to be quite reassured about the situation. He's looking over his shoulder. He's becoming more aware of the fact that he's not able to catch up with Khali Atkins in the lead. That might mean losing the victory for the Frenchman. We're not there yet, but Eyckmans is all over his back end right now, ready to launch his move anytime. And that might be actually on the outside of turn number 11, side by side. Watch out, coming down to turn number 12. And that's where you don't want to miss the racing line. And on the inside, watch out for the cross of Evan Giltaire. He's having none of it, GG. And Eyckmans make his way through for P2.
The battle for second place rages on as across the line, Giltaire goes back down the inside. So does Sam Shaw. The outside line will work in favour as they come back onto the exit as Eyckmans retakes second place. And now they all dive to the inside to try and latch onto that inside curb. Everyone squabbles for a grip once again as side by side for maybe third place. No, Sam Shaw unable to get that cut down the inside as round the outside goes Henkie Kalteren. Tried to get that cut just to grip up on the exit, not able to gain anything from it. They go down into the pinch point and there's contact. Giltaire is rotated round by Shaw. The contact between the two of them, and Evan Giltaire tumbles down the order. Edoardo comes through the fray and he drops right in front of, I believe that's Belotto. Actually it's Latinga. It's Latinga who he's come in front of. So there on your screen is the 201 of Goldstein, who's managed to get through into this fray as well. He's gone up the order, but drama in the later stages of this race for the battle for second.
That's what we feared might happen between the contenders in those very slippery and tricky conditions. Oh, another contact from Lantinga. Oh. The 204 is making his way through with force. Giltaire trying to get back as well. Get back on the momentum as soon as he can. Another contact with the Pantano Racing driver. The 208 of Luca Griggs in the meantime as well. This was heavy as well, and Griggs is off. Griggs is off as a result of that contact with Giltaire, maybe. He went sliding on the outside of turn number 12. What on earth happened there? But Giltaire is still very much in this race, going around the inside of Phil McLaughlin, who crossed the racing line and takes a position back. It opens the door for Kevin Lantinga. Sam Shaw picking up a warning flag in the process, but Giltaire very much still in the mix, having to defend against Julian Kamen, another driver to keep an eye on in the later stages of this race. But look at that battle, so heated it is, but none of those drivers, unfortunately, has any consideration left for the podium finishes. All they need to do is now try to keep on fighting against another and try to pick up the left points because in this mayhem of a race, now it all goes the way of Atkins, Eyckmans and Kalteren, your new top 3.
Yeah, Kalteren there in top 3. He has got Sam Shaw behind, but of course won't be concerned about Shaw because he does have that 5-second penalty of that warning flag to his name. So he's not a driver really he has to worry about now. The driver he may have to worry about, though, is Goldstein, the 201, who was right there on your picture now, is scythed his way through the field from quite far back to P24, Goldstein was. And actually, we've not had an update on the championship classifications at the moment. Edoardo Villa actually still leads, or he leads the championship now with 43 race points. Sam Shaw has 39, but of course with that 5-second time penalty will drop down a couple of places by the time the race has ended. Atkins is up into 3rd in the standings. Here's a replay of that incident between Shaw and Giltaire, and yeah, just had the inside line and contact between the two of them.
Yeah, from that angle, you could clearly, here's another angle where Evan Giltaire went sliding into the grass. He was lucky not to get stuck in the mud over there. But there was clearly, and here he keeps on going, Giltaire outside of turn number 9, pushing a little bit Kevin Lantinga on his way to further positions. But, and this is now what happened. Oh, I think he was a little bit pushed by the look of it, Luca Griggs. Not quite too sure what the official will make of it. But in those conditions, always very hard to get the braking the way you want, but by the look of it, maybe Griggs was surprised a little bit by the slight push from behind from Evan Giltaire, who made his way through in the process. As a switch of position between Eyckmans and Kalteren. Kalteren takes P2 outside of the last turn. Watch out for the counter-attack from Eyckmans. He's very close, looking over his shoulder. There's no pressure at all from Sam Shaw as well, picking up a penalty at the end of the race. So there's 2 on their own planet, battling for second. As warning flag as a result. That's what we saw in the replays. Warning flag for Evan Giltaire as a result of that incident with Luca Griggs. As in the meantime, Eyckmans keeps on pushing on the inside of Henkie Kalteren, who crosses the line, gesturing to the Belgian. Stay with me, let's stop that fighting because we're still in that race. A couple of laps and Sam Shaw just behind.
Oh, Sam Shaw was going to go for a move again down the inside of turn number 4 on Eyckmans there. Nearly a carbon copy of what he did to Giltaire a couple of laps ago, as Giltaire there on your screen in this fray is battling away with all sorts of drivers around him. He's got Lantinga there, he's got Malaysia, he's got Julian Kamen there, who's in that fray as well. Keeping an eye on this one, though. So now Henkie Kalteren looking pretty good here, up into P2. Doesn't really have the drama of Eyckmans now, who has just stayed there in P3. But Khali Atkins, like we were speaking about him earlier, was coming through the field. He started this one in P14 and he's leading the race by 7 seconds. What on earth did they do to that kart to make that super glue to the circuit? There he is on your screen, the 224 from Croc Promotions. They've nailed something on that kart because it is just on rails around this. Atkins is driving it perfectly. Super comfortable with the steering inputs. It's barely sliding as he goes through. In full control of the car. I'll knock on wood because I know commentators curse the real thing and I don't want to praise him too much, but there he is on your screen. But going through, just look at that. It's not even running out wide. It's just, it just goes through the corner like it needs to, doesn't it? Brilliant driving.
Yeah, mastering performance as the rain, you can see, still pouring on the karting define, so the conditions are not getting any better as we're getting near a checkered flag at the end of lap number 13 out of 17. But Khali Atkins, I must say, has been the man on form, and he keeps on cruising away with, by the look of it, not much of an effort for him, as he's able to really utilize the majority of the race on the line. No sudden move whatsoever of the wheel. No need for him to keep on going at such a crazy pace because the gap is there. He's been certainly said from the sideline by one of his mechanics, even though I'm sure he's aware of the gap he's been building against the likes of Kalteren and Eyckmans, but he's been said certainly from the sideline that now is the time to rest a little bit. Don't try to push it, don't try to overdo it to impress the gallery, because certainly the public and the viewers with us have been more than impressed, the two of us first of all, by the performance of Khali Atkins, and this will be his first win on the track of Mariembourg, if I'm not mistaken, with the Croc Promotion. And this has been an absolutely fantastic performance for Khali Atkins in front of Henkie Kalteren, who last year took one of his best results in the IMA Euro Series here in Mariembourg, and is going to do much better than that by stepping on the podium.
Yes, indeed. So 13 laps completed. Here is a replay of Atkins making his way through the field. There was the overtake on Eyckmans. That was for second place. He would later go on to go for the overtake on Evan Giltaire, who at the moment was leading the race at that time. This battle rages on, though. Goldstein versus Sam Shaw. This is the battle for P4 at the moment. Of course, Shaw with that warning flag. Really, Goldstein doesn't need to overtake, but are you going to tell that to a racing driver not to overtake? No. So I suspect he's probably going to go for it anyway as he goes through, because he wants to catch up to the man just in front, in Eyckmans, to go for that position, because like we were saying, Goldstein, who's been dropped down to P8 in the points standings of the championship with only 22. Ruben Moya, who was leading the championship going into this weekend, now sees himself in P4 in the standings with only 35 points, 1 point behind the man who's leading this race, Khali Atkins, who has promoted himself up into third. Villa's still there in first, Shaw's still there in second, but that may change, though, as the race goes on. Eyckmans is still there in sixth place as well, so real shake-up, and there is a kart that's being dragged back onto the circuit. It's the 265.
Alessandro Tudisca from RSD Karting.
Oh, dear.
And that's quite unfortunate to see,
Turn 12,
because
isn't it?
his teammate, Henkie Kalteren, is currently in P2, and Tudisca is ending on a very, very bad note. What has been a difficult weekend, even though we've seen him battling at the front here and there in some of the qualifying races as well. We're back here with Elie Goldstein and Sam Shaw. This is a battle for P4. Goldstein, the reigning Army Euro Series champion, is back. And look at what's happening with Eyckmans. Oh, they came close to touch each other. And Eyckmans was on the verge of the track, but he stays on the tarmac. That was a close call, but watch out for Goldstein for the back as well. Sam Shaw has a penalty, but they might not be aware of that. In the meantime, Goldstein, Eyckmans battling along as well. The British driver is still P4 in front of Goldstein, Eyckmans as well. This will be one of the last battles of this crazy race for what could be the last step of the podium. Goldstein goes for it on the inside, on the rattle. In the meantime, picking up a warning flag as Goldstein is up on the podium as it stands. Eyckmans in P5 will be promoted in P4, whatever happens, due to the penalty to Sam Shaw. But those three drivers certainly still have a word to say in this race, and so does on the inside Eyckmans on Sam Shaw. And the British driver is trying to resist, so he does, and clipping the curb, crossing the line, goes Eyckmans on the outside of turn number 7, pretty much after the hairpin. Beautiful piece of driving from those two drivers at the advantage of Eyckmans, as in the meantime, Elie Goldstein, you know, that's all he wanted to see, to be able to pull away and secure that third finish position.
Let's see what happens to the points classifications when they next cross the line as we go on to the final lap then. Atkins leads by nearly 10 seconds, 9.4 seconds when they last crossed the line. Kalteren will cross the line now. It goes up to 9.6. There's your race leader. Championship points. Goldstein would go back into P6 in the championship standings with 27 race points. But this driver here, well, you can't take anything away from Atkins, who was not on the radar to win this final. He started it in P14 on the 7th row of the grid. He came through the field, a dominant performance, the car on rails, as there is Randy Rattel down the inside at turn number 1, and a bit more contact as he goes through. I'm not sure who that was with. It was with the 203. That's Ruben Moya, who was having contact with Moya, who's the championship leader going into this weekend, is really struggling in these conditions, isn't he? Absolutely being swamped by the main pack. It's been disastrous for him this weekend, probably one to forget, but one to remember 100% is for this man here. Khali Atkins in towards turn 12. He goes for Croc Promotions. It's been a brilliant weekend. He's celebrating before he even gets on the start-finish line. What a dominant performance by over 10 seconds. Atkins across the line in the 224 wins Senior X30 final here at Marienburg for round 2 of the Miami Euro Series in 2023. And as you can imagine, absolutely delighted with that. From 14th on the grid on the 7th row. What a performance. Solid drive. He'll be happy with that after 17 laps. And look at that. He can't even believe it himself.
And this is a strong sign of certainly better things to come for Khali Atkins this season. This could be his year, the Croc Promotion driver. For the Winter Cup, let's remember that he climbed 21 positions after what had been a difficult weekend, but the recovery of the Sunday to get his season started. In Zuera, another difficult weekend, but he made that up until 4th place on track before picking up a penalty. He finished last season with some strong results as well, and top 10 finishes in both the IMA I Games and the Winter Cup as well at the beginning of last season. So he's one driver of the top rendezvous. He knows where to put the performance. He's been on a chart and a fantastic momentum ever since Valencia in February, and it just led to him winning his first race of the IMA Euro Series, the first time in Mariembourg, and what a beautiful demonstration from Croc Promotion, putting him in third place overall in the ranking, still led, as you said, by Edoardo Villa from Sam Shaw. But Khali Atkins is now stepping on the podium of the championship with 2 rounds to go. Here we go through the classification. Khali Atkins from Henkie Kalteren, then Elie Goldstein picking up third place, 21 position gain. Would you believe it, by Elie Goldstein, who turned himself into a master of the rain on home soil to finish in front of Eyckmans before for his first appearance on this track. From Sam Shaw, unfortunately the British driver warned, and a penalty for him post-race. That will promote Edoardo Villa from P6 to P5. Then we have Sambalota P7 from Kevin Lantinga, who as well ended up this race with front fairing going loose. Then we have Julian Kamani P9 from Arnaud Malizia, Bjorn McCaughlin, Evan Giltaire all the way down to P12, unfortunately for the Frenchman, who certainly will regret this race. Then we have P13 Mika Vos from Fred Green, Ethan Pharamond and Gus Lawrence running up the P16.
Well, what a drive there for Atkins as the rest of the grid makes their way back in towards Parc Ferme. More drivers, of course, finishing that one for T17. Aaron Ferranzano, 18 positions gained, as look at that, nice. The emotion there. What a drive. Super happy with it. 18th place. Ruben Moya gained 10 positions in that one. Really struggled, gets demoted to P4 in the championship standings. Still in contention, though, to win. Still with those 35 points. Danny Carenini finishing, rounding out the top 20 from Luca Griggs, Delati and Bollier from Raleigh, Benson, Sorelli, Caranta in that one, rounding out the top 27 from Pirovano, Gillet, Juan and Rafael, Bird and Blanc rounding out the top 33, and Alessandro Tedesca rounding out the 34 karts that finished. 2 retirements, Louis Johnson-Cool and Clément Tron both not finishing from that race. But your driver there, wow, what a performance, eh?
He's the man of the weekend, and you can feel the effort has been at the measure of the result. The emotions must be floating through his brain at the moment. Khali Atkins must be debriefing slowly about what just happened on track with the comfort of his mechanic, as we see the replay of the start, first of all, with a good getaway on the right side of your picture from Evan Giltaire, going the long way around and keep taking at least keeping second place from Eyckmans before taking the lead on the way to turn number 2. Eyckmans in yellow trying to cross, defending himself against Bjorn McCaughlin in P3. Look at the spreads of water into the opening stages of this race. Then we had a bit of a tussle right there with the 216 and the 249, as Khali Atkins in the meantime was pushing like never before, making his effort through the grid. Clipping the curb there was Henkie Kalteren, one of the men as well of the finals, as he got himself ahead of Bjorn McCaughlin. The 249 in trouble in turn number 2, as Rimmer Blanc from Corse Racing tumbled down the order. Eyckmans had a strong start to his race. He was from pole position, even though he had to struggle and keep fighting against Evan Giltaire. Those two all the way down to turn number 12, followed by Sam Shaw. This is where Eyckmans kept his position with Henkie Kalteren putting the pressure on the drivers in front. But Giltaire, that's the point where everything seemed to be really getting wrong for the French driver, who picked up a warning flag as a result. You're gonna see that in a minute, but Eyckmans, Giltaire, Sam Shaw, Kalteren, this was your battle for the remaining positions before that contact in turn number 4. Giltaire being sent sideways and dropping a pile of positions in the process. That's after that in his effort to try to fight back, he picked that penalty after having pushed Kevin Lantinga off the track, as we had as well Luca Griggs. That's actually for this incident, my apologies, as you saw that little bit of a push sending Luca Griggs outside of turn number 12, and as a result, warning flag and penalty for Evan Giltaire. In the meantime, Eyckmans, Henkie Kalteren kept on battling for the podium positions up until the end. It was before, of course, the return of Elie Goldstein, the drivers being very aggressive. Sam Shaw almost sending Eyckmans out of the track, and it actually let room for Elie Goldstein to make his return, having climbed 21 positions. He can be seen here making his move on Sam Show with Eyckmans just behind. Aldo Belgian driver kept on battling, crossing the line. He didn't want to let anything go, and it was enough for him to secure the P4 in front of Sam Show. In the lead with a massive gap of more than 10 seconds, almost 11, we had Khali Atkins, and celebrating with Croc Promotion, his mechanics, a fantastic and dominant start it has been for Khali Atkins that we saw already on a very good momentum in Zweira and at the Winter Cup, being congratulated by his mechanic, and he can be proud of himself. Croc Promotion can be proud of themselves, as well as RSD Karting, P2 with Henkie Kalteren on home soil.